This is Eating Crow with Pete Durand. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Eating Crow. Today we're honored to have Asger Lindholdt. He's a frustrated engineer who felt like he could really do a great job helping other technical people and entrepreneurs learn how to present in public. It's a learned art. It's something people have a very difficult time with, and Asger does a great job of giving us some really pointed and key advice on how to address and solve this problem. Some of his biggest tips are intention, structure, and delivery. If you can conquer those three things, what's your intention? How do you structure your presentation? And then some tips on how to deliver it. Asger, it's good to have you here. You are a fellow engineer who likes to help people talk.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Pete, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure and honor.
So tell me about the moment in your career when you realized I need to go help someone communicate their value proposition differently than they have. Were you sitting in a presentation and watching someone do this, or was it your own presentation that you realized there are things I could work on? Describe the moment where you realized I need to be doing something else.
Yeah. So it probably started, many years ago. And what happened was I joined a course in this engineering association because at that time I was working as an engineer. And I thought, yeah, it would be great to learn how to present. And so I went for this course, a 3-hour course in the evening. And after the course, I just thought, you know what? This is really fun. I like this. But there weren't really that many courses. And I stumbled across a club called Toastmasters.
Sure.
It's not a club where you toast, but it's actually where you learn to give presentations. And I joined that club and I discovered, you know what? I had a real passion for presenting. And after that, I just kind of tried to evolve and get better. And then I've been trying to overcome my own insecurities along the way and just learn the craft really of presenting. And then for many years, I worked as an engineer, but I wasn't really fulfilled. I wasn't really passionate. And I didn't really know what to do. But then eventually I kind of said, you know what, this is my passion. And I decided to go down that path of helping other people. And it's just so much fun when somebody comes in your door and you have a great session and they walk out and they say something like, now I know exactly what to do. And you can see it in their eyes. That's what makes the difference for me rather than looking into the screen, which is what you probably do most of the time as an engineer.
True. Very true. So if you were to tell me that the top 3 mistakes someone presenting either as, let's give 2 examples. I'm an inventor. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started a business. I have a widget I need to sell.
Yeah.
What are the 3 biggest mistakes a young presenter typically makes?
So I think there are a number of things people do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, if you're trying to sell a thing, the thing is, maybe you try to convince the people that this is amazing. You tell, see this amazing product.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you shouldn't see how amazing this is. Your audience should realize that through your demonstration.
Sure.
So if you have a printer, let's say you're selling a printer, you invented a new way of printing, you shouldn't be the one saying, oh, look, this is amazing. It's got all this. Maybe you just tell the features and say, it's really beautiful. And you can have these big prints, even though the printer is so small, and you show it, and like, whoa, yeah, I need that thing, right? So it's about making the person go through a process so they realize this is what I need. Because if you just give the solution, the information, they're probably not going to act on it. Let's take a classical example of getting fit, getting in shape. It's, well, eat healthier, exercise a little bit more. I mean, how many people are going to act on that? Probably nobody.
Very few,
right?
believe me, I know.
So if you could make people realize, you know what, this could help me in the long run. This could make me more energized. This could make me actually have more quality time, maybe with my kids, and enjoy my, old time. So that would be one thing. I think so that's one thing. The next thing is really just being comfortable on the stage. And this is something I struggled with. And we hear it all the time, just be your authentic self. But you know what, really just being okay, being on that stage, taking the time to feel, show those pictures. If you're describing it, you need to, paint a picture. Okay, here we're seeing this thing, and then feel it. If you look at a speaker like Barack Obama,
I watched that
he
video where you talked about his
okay,
pauses. He
yeah, I
feels it
mean,
before he says it.
yeah. So he's a master of this. He will take the time to feel, and he'll be able to create those pictures. And I think many of us we get a little bit anxious, and we think we need to bombard our audience with loads of information, maybe out of insecurity, or maybe because, oh, I just got 15 minutes, I got to really give them so much. But maybe you just want to give them one thing they leave with, and like, yeah, that's what I got to do.
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
were in your video when you described the pause, right, and you talked about how people
Mm.
try to make it mechanical, take a 3 second pause,
Yeah.
think about more pauses, longer pauses. I really liked what you described. And by the way, you were effectively pausing in your video, so you were applying your own craft.
Thanks.
But obviously, people in this country have seen, and you're in Copenhagen right now. For those that are listening
Mm.
and may not know where you're calling in from, I would agree. When Barack Obama gave the speech at the Democratic National Convention 4 years before he was elected president, I was
Mm.
watching that, and I said to my wife, "There's the next president of the United States."
Yeah.
And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The reason he's in that particular slot is because that guy just crushed it, and they know it. I'm not going to have anybody pick their political views right now, but no one
No.
can argue the fact that he was one of the most effective speakers we've had in the presidency." And you're right. I had never contemplated or considered what you just described. When I look back at his presentations, you're exactly right. He takes a pause, and I can see him contemplating his next thought
Mm.
and connecting with it and then delivering in a way that resonates, right? His tone, his pace, his
Mm.
authenticity. He's very articulate. So I think you've offered people a very interesting way to think about public speaking. And what I mean by that is you talked about being comfortable. If you are comfortable with your material, it also means you're probably pretty passionate about it,
Yeah.
right? If you're about to present the best printer in the world, it should be very natural, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote this down. You said, don't convince, let the product convince them. And what I wrote
Mm.
down is just print something. If it's that
Yeah.
good, just print it and show them,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
you described don't convince, and then avoid being anxious, which is also really good advice. Just be comfortable. What would be your third tip that you see your clients when they come in that you have to address initially?
So a lot of things, it would be a lot of people, they tend to give canned material,
Ah,
meaning that you need to really consider the audience.
mm-hmm,
All good communication starts with the audience. I mean, it's all about that. It's never about you. So, for instance, a question I will ask myself always: who is the audience emotionally?
mm-hmm,
What state are they in? Are you walking into a group that's stressed? You know, or are you walking into a group that maybe lacks the overview? Maybe they
mm-hmm.
had a long session and you're the last speaker on that stage. Maybe you want to group things together and say, you know what, when you leave today, you've had so much material and I have so much respect for you. You're taking time out here, you raised them up, you built them up,
Mm-hmm.
and you really acknowledge them for who they are. It's not just like, thank you, I'm here, because that's empty. You need to justify why you are here, because you took time out of your calendar. I know you're busy, you could have probably made some sales calls, but you chose to come here today and grow, learn. And it's all been a long day, and I want to give you what I've seen from the outside, three things, because it starts to get overwhelmed. If you focus on these three things and we then dive into it, but just remember, if it's too much, these are the three things you should remember as a great speaker. It's intention. What's your intention for the audience? How to structure your talk, and how to make a great delivery. Those are basically the three things you need. And now we can dive into it. But if you're feeling lost, remember, these are the three things you need to train and focus on. See, that's a way of, looking in who is the audience and thinking about it, because too many times, the CEO or the department manager will go in and give this canned presentation he gave last year and say, okay, look at these slides. And we all remember them from last year. and and you're just feeling like, okay, he's speaking not to me, but to like a thing. And I see it so many times. You need to merely justify why are you there, and connect with the audience. Really dive in. Who are they? And why do you admire them? Why do you have respect for them?
Well, those are really wonderful tips. Our
Yeah.
organization had 4 vendors just present their services to us.
Mm,
And we brought in our sales and marketing team to observe this,
yeah.
right? And it was a lesson in just what you described. So 3 of the 4 vendors were terrible.
Okay.
And I'll touch on the 3 and describe the 4th why they were so good. So the first 3 had multiple people, and we were on a Zoom call.
Mm,
Most of the people didn't say anything. They were just there, which was somewhat distracting. They didn't have a role.
okay.
The people presenting, number one, to your point, they were giving a canned presentation.
Yeah.
They were not prepared for questions. They didn't handle the price question at all. They waffled. And the most unfortunate thing in their presentations is when they were asked a question they didn't have a solid answer for, they didn't say that. Right? It happens all the time. By the way, you're an engineer, right? And you're presenting something technical.
Yeah.
Very often, you will be asked a question that's beyond your understanding of a current product. That's okay. You
Yeah.
just simply say, "That's a great question, Asger. I don't know, but I will find the answer and get back to you." Instant credibility right there.
Yeah.
There's no way to shoot a presenter for that because they just admitted they don't have the answer.
No.
We could talk for days about the other presenters. Their content was terrible, but the one that did really, really well didn't even show a slide.
Yeah.
This person wrote down all of the, and by the way, never even went on camera. There was no one on the Zoom call. He didn't even show his face.
Okay.
He wrote down everyone's name on the call from our team, asked what their role was, understood what their role was. And throughout the demonstration, when one of us would ask a question, he would say, "Pete, I believe that's you, correct?" So he acknowledged the question. And then when he gave the answer, he paused at least every 30 to 45 seconds to say, "Asger, did that answer your question, or what else can I provide you?" So that connection you talked about
Yeah.
was stellar. When they got to pricing, he had the answer crisp.
Mm,
And at the end, he thanked every individual on the call, acknowledged their role, and then recapped what he just presented as a value proposition to that particular person's role. "Hey, Pete, you were in operations. I think I just showed you how our service can save you 30% of the time and free up other resources to do X."
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and at the end, he said, "Why don't you take 2 days to think about this? I'll connect with you on Monday. And then you can let me know if our services are of value to you. And if so, we'll move forward. If not, we both have things to do. I understand." Our team got off the call astounded at the confidence of this person. So, when you go back and look at what you just described, right?
Mm,
Intention, structure, which I want to talk about here in a minute,
sure.
and delivery. Let's break down all 3 of those. When you say intention, what does that mean to you when you're talking to, and by the way, I'm sure some of your clients
Mm,
have not done a lot of public presenting.
sure.
So when you say the word intention to an engineer who's very uncomfortable in front of an
Mm,
audience, what are
yeah.
you meaning?
So the intention means really you should be able to feel that positive intention. That
Okay.
that what are you really trying to change within them? So it's not just about me making a sale.
Okay.
It's about they feel, this sale, this product or whatever you're selling is there to help you. And like you said, this guy was just very upfront, very honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? This is my service. This is what I do. If you don't see the value in it, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can just move forward. So it's very much about that you can feel the intention is positive. It should be a win-win. And so I think it's about that and really understanding where they're coming from. Instead of, the intention could be, let's say I go on stage and I show I got all this great material. That's an intention for me to show that I'm amazing. But this is not what it should be about. It should be
Mm-hmm.
about the audience. How can I help them? So if they feel this, hey, when Aska is speaking, he's really here to help me grow. He's not here to show off. which some speakers do.
There's
Um,
no question. You have a video where you talk about people throwing up their CV, right, as
yeah,
their intro.
yeah,
And I'm going to go back to one of the things you actually have this in your LinkedIn profile. And I think this is, there's some value to what you're describing here. So you say, I help solo entrepreneurs share their message from the stage.
yeah,
That could be your intention.
yeah. That's my intention. Yeah.
So if I'm in the audience, you're giving, and by the way, you did just at the end, you said, here's three things you need to do: intention, structure, and delivery. So
Mm,
in no point did you talk about I'm the world's greatest public speaker. You said, here's what I'm going to offer you.
yeah,
And then for the next 20 or 30 or minutes or 60 minutes, how you deliver that, the structure of your presentation will convey all the credibility you need.
yeah.
Right. And most people send your bio out ahead of time if they're going to watch you present. They're doing some research. They should kind of know who you are, unless it's truly a sales presentation. Then you've
Mm,
got to, you know, you shouldn't be on the call if you're not qualified to do that sales presentation. I think customers would have to assume that. Right.
yeah,
So I really like the fact that what you want to do is feel the win-win.
yeah.
Right. So the intention is to deliver something of value to the person who's listening to you. Now, you said something interesting. If they don't perceive it as valuable, one of two things happened. We didn't understand their intentions or their needs, right, and
Mm,
delivered the wrong product or service.
sure.
Or quite frankly, it's a timing. They said we don't need this service at this time. Typically in a sales presentation, that's somewhat but aligned before you get in the call, right? You're selling something, they're taking a call because they feel like you have something that's valuable.
Mm,
So, but in a public setting, right, if I'm raising money for the first time, let's think about that for a minute. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm raising money.
yeah.
Well, the people you're raising money from aren't buying your product or service. They're buying
No.
you.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
feels important.
yeah,
If you're coaching the intention aspect of an entrepreneur who's raising money,
yeah.
what are you telling them is the most important thing they can convey in the first 3 minutes to a potential investor?
I think that the vision, I mean,
Okay.
the story behind it. At the moment, I'm actually working with a company, and what they're doing is they're selling a service. You can say their service is really helping people finish their master thesis with a company,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so much more than that, because if you do get to chance to collaborate with a company when you do your master thesis or bachelor project, you have a much easier chance to work with that company. And even if you don't end up working with them, you do get some work experience.
Sure.
And what the data shows is, what he told me at least, is that if you sometimes you tend to, your first role when you finish your degree is you tend to get a role below your educational level.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is it's very hard to get back up where you actually deserve to be.
Sure.
So the story we worked on selling is really a good life, working with what you truly are passionate about and what your skill level is. Because if you get on the wrong shelf, too low a shelf from the beginning, it's very hard to get up on the correct shelf with your skill level. So really, he's not just selling a great master project, he's actually selling a great work life. And can you show that? I'm like, okay, do you want to be on this journey, helping all these students get a great work life and not just 4 or 6 months of a little bit more experience? So that's the story. And it's very hard to say no to that. Obviously, then there are other steps. Can the investor get their money back? Are
Sure.
they, do they get along with the team, and so on? Do they trust them? But the most important thing, I think, is the story behind that.
You did a couple things that were of value there for our listeners. Many people, and I've done hundreds of investor pitches.
Mm,
Most technical presentations or technical inventors get to the how before they get to the
yeah.
why, right? They want to go up and put a slide up with 1,000 words or graphics on it and describe how they do what they do. That's not important. The story of what is valuable in their product or service is the most important thing. This is why we do what we do. And you just described it. For those students, it's a good life. It's the value of their life, right? Putting them in the position to be successful from the beginning. And you also described why it's valuable, right? If you insert yourself on the bottom shelf, it's so much harder to get here. So taking something that would be, I think, hard to describe, a master's project tool, and then describing that value is important. So, well done. I think the story is the most important thing, and you have to be a good storyteller for the rest of your life if
Yeah,
you're going to be an entrepreneur.
definitely. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how the brain works. We get things through the brain. We,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we think in pictures and
Ah,
feelings. I mean, if you listen to two people speaking and you just observe them, you'll notice that the most of the times they're just telling stories.
sure.
They're painting pictures, they're doing emotions. And then the thing is, we tend to think we get up on stage and we should be all, polished. We should be all, perfect. And we put on what I call the speaking armor and like, oh, look at this. And it
Mm-hmm.
gets boring, it gets predictable, and it's become so stiff, so inauthentic. And a lot of times, like you mentioned, we think the slides is going to do it for us. But it's not really about the pictures you have on your screen. The real important pictures are the pictures you help the audience see from their mind. Do you see that? Oh yeah, I see myself. If
Mm-hmm.
that was an investment, I see myself, being on a picture with these 100 students that went through this, or whatever it is. I see myself as somebody that helped these people. Can you make that picture? Can you make them see that? Oh, that's strong.
Pictures, as you described, are feelings. They drive emotions.
Yeah.
So you'll appreciate this. I spoke at a media conference in Chicago a couple
Mhm.
years ago, and it was a technical conference. So it was some of the larger magazines in the technical industry in the United States, and there was an awards aspect of the conference, and then there was a couple keynote speakers. So I had the fortune of going after one of the speakers who did just what you described as the wrong thing to do. They got up and gave a very canned presentation with literally 1,000 words in every slide and droned on and on and on. And I was watching the audience. He lost them in the first 3 minutes. So there's nothing better, as you know, to go up someone like after someone like that. It's really hard
No, I
not to look
mean,
better. So
it's easy for you.
yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
and what I did is I put up probably 10 slides with 2 words in each slide.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
2 words were
Yeah.
meant to trigger an emotion. And then I told stories of how they, as technical people, could do what you described, create a story and a vision, a value proposition to their customers when selling something technical that could be considered really boring. And it was my first time at this conference. I don't think they'd seen what I'll just call myself a real salesperson in that environment. It was unusual, and we triggered a lot of emotion, a lot of buzz. We got the audience engaged and laughing and feeling good about what they were thinking, and the follow up after that was really compelling. And the person that presented before me happened to be sitting at my table for dinner that night, and he just leaned over and said, "How do I do that?"
Wow. Great.
So and this leads into the reason I told the story. It leads into the second bullet you'd given us, which is structure.
Yeah.
This person's, and we're going to get to the third, which his structure was awful. His
Mhm.
delivery was terrible. His intention was good, but he didn't convey that. So when we think about structure, and let's get specific so our audience can understand what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Let's say I've got 15 minutes
Yeah.
in front of an audience. And by the way, a lot of people don't realize in many investor presentations or client, you have 15 minutes to convey your value proposition, even
Yeah.
less in some situations. What would you tell people are the most important things to provide either visually on a slide deck or verbally to get the customers to track your story down through the leave behind? What's your advice on structure?
So the structure, I think, should be first, you really need to show what's in it for the audience.
Okay.
What is in it for them. You can either do it through a story. You can just be straight up. 3 ways we help people do this and this and this. Or a question: have you ever experienced, sitting on a bus or whatever, experience XYZ, and then they put themselves in that story, and yes, okay, there's a problem. So
Mm-hmm.
what's in it for the audience? That's really key. And you lift the audience up, you praise them, and then, so that's what I call the start. You need to have a great start. So I have, basically, we're not going to go through all five, but in start, the A, I have these 5 steps in start. A stands for what's in it for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So either could be through a phrase, through a question, or like you did, you had an exercise, maybe like talk to your partner 30 seconds about Y and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So do that. And you need to build up, why is that important? That's the subject. Why is that important? Why is it important we help master students, or why is it important we um, do whatever we do, these printers? Maybe we need to do something for the environment, or we save office space. And you need to, maybe you want to find something that the audience hasn't seen before. The typical things we tend to build, what's in it for you is money or time, but can you find something else? Maybe it could be less stress, or some other thing, you make life a little bit easier.
So
Um,
you described two good things, right? Which, what's in it for the audience, and then why
mm,
is it important?
yeah,
Two different ways to ask the same question. You have to tell them right up front, this is why this is important. You said the word environment. For a lot of people, boy, that would get their attention, right?
yeah,
Or I'm going to save you time, or I'm going to save you money, or I'm going to give you whatever it is. Why is it important is really key.
yeah,
And that why is the number one thing people want to know in the very first slide or opening
yeah,
statement
yeah,
is, why am I here?
yeah,
So what?
yeah.
I mean, one of our
Because
CFO's favorite questions, if I see that slide, I'm going to say, so what? What is the so
mm,
what? What does it mean?
yeah.
Great. Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is, as speakers, we tend to a lot of times get nervous,
Mm-hmm.
but the audience is actually also a bit nervous.
Uh,
Most people will think, "Am I in the right place? Should I
mm-hmm.
even be here?" But you, when you address it, what's in it for you? Like, yeah, okay, I'm in the right place.
Sure.
I'll pay attention, and they feel good. They relax a little bit. So we often don't. We forget a little bit the audience. They might feel a little bit anxious too. Should I even be here? Is it a little bit stupid that I
Mm-hmm.
came here, or should I, have done something else? So start the positive thing. What is in it in a positive way? But and then the second phase you go into is struggle, because
Mm.
what moves us people are essentially just two things. It's a positive thing towards something, which you just described, what's in it for you, what you gain, but then the struggle away from something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you talk about the struggle. What are the problems if you continue to do this? You should share some stories, some points here. Nokia, for instance, they uh, they were just convinced back in the old days we're doing great, we're selling loads of cell phones. But if they have had a story about the struggle, and said, okay, you know what happens to great companies if they don't innovate over time? Well, you're probably going to lose the battle, because there's someone in the East that's working their butt off, and they want to beat you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could have found maybe those stories and made them a little bit, okay, I better be on my toes. Here in Denmark, we have a company, you know it, Lego, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were about to go bankrupt. Probably 7, 8 years ago, they made a big turnaround, and now they're making loads of money. They're very successful. And I love the phrase that came out from the CEO a few years ago, and he said, "We are 2 years from bankruptcy," and they were just making loads of money, the best year ever. And I think that explained everything. We are still in trouble because we need to keep innovating all the time. So he put in that fear in the company, and that you need to be humble, and still, there's the fear. So having the positive aspect and the struggle aspect, if you hit those two, people start to be, yeah, we should probably do something about this, right? And then an important part of any presentation is a story, what I call a holy shit moment, the moment where you're like, I got it,
Yeah.
we need to do this. Maybe let's say you're out speaking to some people, and you're like, yeah, we need feedback culture. Of course we need that. That's the thing we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we have that? You share some stories, some turnarounds, so you get them real emotional with your story. You can use stories in the start, in the struggle, but you need to have a story somewhere in your presentation. And then you really, you build and you prepare the audience, and they should hopefully be on the edge of their seats and be like, I got to know what this is. How do we
Mm-hmm.
do it? Now I want to know. And then you're ready to present your solution.
Mm-hmm.
You make them, okay, look at this great thing. If we can make it, here's the problem. Okay, if we don't do it, and here's the story. Wow, it could be
You
this
know,
amazing thing.
I think about so. By the way, Nokia had a very large presence here in the Raleigh Research Triangle Park for a long time, and now they don't.
Yeah,
So, but the Lego story, I've heard many aspects of that business, and it is a wonderful story about how they reshape themselves, the use of the
Yeah.
movies to do that, and create a whole new audience for their products.
Mm.
All my kids really enjoy Legos as a kid. As an engineer, I love doing it with them. So,
Yeah.
but what's great is, when you talk about their CEO announcing, we are always 2 years away from bankruptcy. That's a great call to action. And if you think about technical presentations, you're typically trying to present something that's new and innovative to a customer base, which forces them to think outside the box, to innovate, to take a chance. And I'm going to use this, right? The concept of we're always 2 years from bankruptcy means if you don't do this, if you don't innovate and think about staying in front of your competition, you will be bankrupt.
Yeah.
This is the solution that helps you innovate and stay in front of your customers. It's a great, to your point, it's the struggle. We're all struggling with that. So that's a unique message. You wove a story in there about Lego into your own presentation, and it was seamless, right? So well done. Let's talk about the third thing, which I believe is the most difficult part for someone who's not comfortable in front of an audience, and that is the delivery. Right? You and I can
Yeah.
help create slides. We can help them understand the value prop. We can even give them the story.
Yeah.
But if it is not delivered in a compelling manner, it doesn't matter. The audience will tune out.
Yeah.
So when you think about someone who you can clearly tell is not comfortable from an audience,
Mm.
either they're not confident, they don't have really good speaking skills,
Mm.
where do you start with the delivery process? What's the first thing you start to work on and chip away at?
Well, you got to identify really what's the root cause
Okay.
of their fear,
Okay.
of their nervousness. And well, I can just share my own story.
Sure.
Um, a lot of the things when I used to get very nervous on stage because my dad he was a little bit hard. He didn't he wasn't the guy that would just praise you and say, hey, I love you, son, you're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like I had to work for it, and even if I worked hard at it, I felt I didn't get the praise. And I remember one time back in eighth grade, I was so proud because I got a really good grade in math, and my dad he really cared about the scientific classes, and I had this grade sheet in my hand, and I was so proud, and I was I wanted to show it to him, and I was hoping he would pat me on my head and say, well done, son, I'm proud of you. So I remember just I lived in this small town with about 20,000 people, and my parents lived in this house up on a little hill with some stone road, and my dad worked as a high school teacher. And so I remember he came out. I came back from school about 2 o'clock, and I remember walking on the sidewalk, and I see him coming out of the porch. I'm like, yeah, now I can show it to him. I was a little bit anxious because I didn't really know what he was going to say, but I was pretty sure he was going to say, well done, son. And I give him the sheet, right? So I looked at, I got 10 here in math, which is a good grade in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at it. He said, why isn't that 11? You know, and I just totally collapsed. And then we can have some traumas, some past events that you go into, and then for some reason I needed to overcompensate on the stage. Look, how good I am. So I gave like too much. You come out of your body instead of just relaxing and be like, you know what, you are good enough as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Just chill out and be comfortable, relax. Your audience going to relax, and what you have is good. And if they don't happen to like it, that's also okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you need to identify what's really the root cause of that. Maybe say I haven't practiced, I haven't trained. Okay, well we can work on that. That's pretty simple. Let's work on it. Let's find a system so you can remember your talk. There are ways to remember a talk, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should remember it word by word, but
You're right.
there are memory techniques. So you can I can teach them that. It's pretty simple to use that. So you find the root cause of their fear, and typically what I find is it stems from the childhood. Some issues where you had some wounds there, and then I just show them the process. They get comfortable. Oh yeah, that's a great structure. You can see how you built that up, and we work a little bit on how to use your hand, how to stand, but it should primarily be pretty comfortable I mean, I'm not a big fan of people, I see a lot of speaker trainers be like, oh, then you should have your hands, up here if it's energetic and a little bit down if it's more solid. And, you got to do a lot of voice warm up and your shoulders back. No, just chill, man. Feel good and you're going to be great. So a lot of people, they might want to write their speech down and then they afterwards think we should put on the body.
Mm-hmm.
No, be, natural, confident. If you start to teach people about body language and say you got to do this with your hands, it becomes inauthentic because the body does something a little bit before we speak. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of helping us or the listener to understand what's coming. But if I'm doing it at the same time, I'm starting to think about it, it becomes unnatural. So eventually, just want to relax and chill. Um, but yeah, there are certain things you can teach how to stand. You don't want to lean towards one side or stand up against the wall,
Sure.
stand behind a desk. You want to be open and comfortable, and you want to be a little bit on the left, a little bit in the center, a little bit on the right.
You want to
So you get to
move.
connect with
Mm-hmm.
people in different ways. Maybe you have a key takeaway phrase, and you pause. Boom.
So, Asger, there's some really good nuggets in what you just did there, and whether it was intentional or not, but you just did what a compelling presenter and storyteller does. When you were describing your relationship with your father and the fact that you got a 10, and he said, "Why is this not an 11?" As you were telling the story, you described the town, how big it was. You described the house up on the hill, the cobblestone streets, you approaching with a test in your hand and how you felt. You were proud, you were excited because he cared about the science and the technical grades, and you felt like you just delivered, right? You were excited. And then you described how he was walking out the door. And you set the tone. I was visualizing that town, that street. I visualized the color of the house, by the way, as you were describing that story. So if you're thinking about helping someone who hasn't done this and you share
Mm.
that story with them and what motivates you and how it shaped your early presentations, that you were trying to give too much to impress and you got out of your own, you said, I got out of my own body. I stepped out of my own body.
Mm.
There's so much there. And I think you help your clients, you disarm them, right? They go, geez, if he's gone through this, maybe I can get there. And you start to dig a little deeper. I'll give you a funny story about that kind of ties that together. So my daughter's wedding, the father of the bride gives a speech.
Uh,
And my crew knows I'm a speech giver. So there were people kind of excited about what's Pete's speech going to be like, and we need to record it. Well, my speech was awful. I will tell you, it was probably one of the worst ones I've given. It was just terrible. And what's funny is my son-in-law's best man, they both played soccer at Duke together, and we got to know Slotty. He's a really great kid. Was so nervous about the best man speech. He was petrified to give this speech. He was nervous about going after me. He wrote it. He practiced it with his teammates when he came back into town, and he gave up. He came up and gave his speech after mine, and I was standing next to three of my friends. Asger, I'm not exaggerating. It's the best man speech I have ever seen delivered.
wow.
It it was funny. It was it was heartfelt. It was thoughtful. It told stories. It tied it back to my daughter and Chase, her husband, and the moments they had together. It was 100% sincere. And what's amazing is his delivery was spectacular. He paused. He let the laughter sink in. He was humble. I'm not kidding you. He finished, and my friends looked at me and said, "Dude, that guy just schooled you." And I said, "You're right." It was amazing. So as you're describing your story and your techniques, I'm thinking about Slotty, and I'm going to give Slotty a shout out when we post this.
Okay. So,
I still think about his speech because he was, I don't know that he's ever done it before. I literally don't think he's ever done a public presentation like that before. And he did everything you just described. He told stories, he paused effectively, and he stayed in his lane. He didn't try to be anybody other than himself. And it was just perfect. And I can imagine if you were his coach, you would just be sitting back there going, wow, it's so fun to see.
Yeah, I'm sure he could, yeah, crush it on stage. Because,
He,
and that's also the thing, because if he had done so well on that one, there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do it again. We all have
uh,
good days and bad days, but then I remind myself, yeah, there was that time it went amazing. So
yeah.
I know I have it within me, and Slotty, maybe he can think about that in the future. You know what? I did that best man speech. I was fantastic. So now he just needs to find a way to do it again
Yes.
because he has it within him. So he should feel confident. Okay, I just need to find it again. What did I do to get there? You know?
And being authentic, you talked about, some people coach you about how to stand, where to put your hands, how to act, put on your speech body. I'm with you. I think you need to be true to yourself. And the advice I give most people when they ask me, Pete, what should I do in this presentation? Is you hit it earlier. I think there's only two things I tell them: know you and know your audience. If you have those two things covered, you can make the connection. So if you're typically presenting on something, it probably means you are the smartest person in the room on that particular topic.
Yeah.
Right? So be confident. You wouldn't be up there if you didn't know what you were talking about.
No.
And if you know your audience, you hit some really good points. If it's the last presentation of the day, don't be the longest presenter of the day.
No,
Right?
you need to shape it so
Yep.
they get the most value
Hmm.
out of it. Yeah.
Bringing value is the most important thing.
It's actually the only thing that's important.
It is. And you can see the community where you and I met, which is LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
That's the mantra right now. Don't worry about how many likes you're on. Just bring value every single day. And the videos you post are always something of value. And you're just offering it up there, right? You're just saying, here's something I think you can learn from. And that's how people connect with you.
Yeah.
Let's
I
shift
think,
gears.
yeah,
Go ahead, please.
go ahead. No, I'm just saying that that's true. And some people are afraid that, okay, people are not going to contact me because, I share all this information. But you know what? In the end, people still need help with the implementation.
Oh, yeah.
Information for free, implementation for fee. And they're going to come to you anyway. Because in the end, we need that help with the actual implementation and just having a coach that, I'm getting mentored as well. And, I get more done if I know, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to meet my coach. I'm going to meet with, instead, if I didn't have anybody, I'll put it off next week.
Hmm.
So, it's always valuable to have someone coach you. Yeah.
So let's shift gears for a minute and talk
Sure.
about your business. Let's talk about your
Yeah.
coaching business, and you're a TEDx trainer.
Sure.
Um, where describe your most frequent type of customer? Who's seeking you out, and what are they looking to accomplish?
Yeah. So I typically have two kinds of customers.
Hmm.
I have people that that have a burning desire for something, typically within personal development, and then they want training on
Okay.
how to deliver a killer speech because it's part of their business to go out and speak. Maybe it's to make online courses, attract clients to one-on-one, or actually get paid to speak. And
Okay.
then we build how do you make a transformational teaching. How do you transform people, not just deliver information? So that is both a personal aspect where we go deep, like I talked about. Sometimes it's a lot of coaching,
Hmm.
even though it's communication. So that's a typical client I could have that come to me. The second group I have is engineers, researchers, where I go and do workshops.
Okay.
I'll go do a 3-4 hour workshop and train them how to deliver a technical presentation because I obviously use my own background as an engineer and also having worked as a PhD student and a consultant in the oil and gas business. So a lot of people, oh yeah, Asger, he knows, they can see I've been in their position, so that gives me a bit of credibility.
Hmm.
So I help them with their workshops. What I found a little bit hard is once I've been there to really get them to go one-to-one training, get really good. A lot of the engineers and researchers, they tend to look at it as a little bit like it's a skill that's nice to have, but it's not really that needed. So a 3-hour workshop, that's fine,
Hmm.
But I think you need more. You need that one-on-one to really move. Even just 3 sessions, you can get really far with,
Mm-hmm.
and you can enjoy that investment for the rest of your life. Imagine you
Certainly.
buy a pair of shoes, how long are they going to last? Maybe a couple of years at best. But this investment that you make in yourself is for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the best investments we can make in ourselves, and those that last a lifetime. But
Well,
people tend to think I'm busy, or maybe I'm not a good enough salesman. I don't know.
you might find another Asger in the audience, though, right? So
Oh
someone who's
yeah,
sitting there and
no,
goes, "Wow, I happen to like this part of my job. This would be great. How do I learn more?"
yeah, no, that does happen too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Uh, you know, I'll be curious to see how your career evolves using this type of technology, right? Zoom, doing training, because this isn't a
yeah.
new art form as well, right? Being able to
Mm.
do this over a Zoom call, let alone standing in front of an audience, is challenging. How would you help someone adjust their presentation style or delivery doing it over video? What's it? I want to leave the audience with that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So video, yeah, that's a totally, not totally, but it's quite a different format. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit harder if you have a group together to do exercises 2 and 2, and it's a little bit harder to, I mean, there's a delay to it as well,
Sure.
because it's a little bit harder to connect through the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So most people need to put aside a little bit more time. That's what I discovered once I started doing workshops online, to set aside a little bit more time um, for that. And then you need see, it's good if you can see your hands, so they're a little bit animated. It gives a little bit more energy if you
Mm-hmm.
have that every now and then, instead of just looking into a screen all the time.
Yep.
So, and then really just looking into the lens,
Yeah.
because that's where the eye contact is. So even when we're speaking, a lot of the time, I prefer to obviously look at your face,
Mm-hmm.
but I know for the audience, they have more value if I look in the lens.
Sure.
So a great little tip right there is just put up a smiley, one of these yellow notes, and smiley. So remind yourself to smile and look at the lens. That helps. It is quite demanding to do, because it's easier to look at you, because
Yes.
that's our tendency to do that. Um,
Well, now I'm
so
rethinking this
yeah,
whole thing because I have been looking at you and I haven't been looking at my lens. But most people are going to listen to this versus watch it.
yeah,
But
it's
um,
it's not a big deal. I just think it gives a little
it's a
bit,
it's a
those ten
great
percent
tip.
extra.
It's a great tip. In fact, what I've tried to do is position my camera to be as close to where you are positioned as
Okay.
possible. I need to get that quite figured out. You did a couple things there as you were describing it that were really good. When you moved your hands and you leaned into the camera a couple times, right? So you changed the perspective of where you're positioned on the camera, which caused me to notice, right? You leaned
Mm,
in and pulled yourself back, which is what you would do naturally in a conversation with someone. You would lean in to make a point
yeah.
and you would use your hands. So you're making it much more interactive versus someone just sitting and monologuing, right? That interaction is great. And the smile thing is so important.
Yeah.
I mean,
Really. Yeah.
just bringing some comfort to the audience you're talking to. And I think letting people know it's okay to make a mistake. It doesn't need to be perfect. It shows you're
In fact,
human.
that's why we learn. Sometimes I say, if you don't share your failures will be shared by others, right? Or your fail. Just how do I say it? Your failure story should go viral. Otherwise,
Hmm.
failure will go viral. So too much learning is not. We don't share our failures. I
Right.
remember when I came from the scientific community with doing my PhD, but nobody shares their failures. So many articles aren't made because people just want to publish this worked.
Well,
So
you have
researchers
hit.
all over the world are redoing the same mistakes.
This is the point of eating crow, is talking about how our failures shape us. I think you've just kind of brought it home in a very sweet way. So if you were to summarize for our audience, what would be a moment where you experienced failure and sharing that with people brought value? Can you describe one of those moments?
Yeah, I remember that was probably about 6 years ago. I had a girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
or she had then broken up with me, and we'd been together for 5 years. And she happened to find another guy, and I was trying to do all sorts of things to win her back. I have no musical talent, no rhythm at all, but she happened to like this guy because he was a great dancer. And I thought, I can win her back if I just learn to dance. So I did all sorts of things try to win her back. And I went up on stage and shared all those things, and people had a great, great time. They laughed, and and the funny thing, when you share your failures, your inner insecurities, and your inner struggles, people just like they laugh, they have a good time, but it does something to us.
Yeah.
I changed. I became comfortable with it. And one of the best things, it's pure therapy for me, sharing my failures. Sharing my dad's story
Yeah.
still gets me emotional, but it helps me.
Yeah.
So for us, if you're sitting there, it's a little bit sometimes selfish also to share your own failures, because you will feel better.
Yes, it is.
You're sitting with a friend, you talk about, you have some challenges, issues, and all the guy is doing is listening, not even offering advice or tips.
Yes.
And you feel better.
That's an art form, by the way. When you have true friends that recognize that moment when they just need to listen and be there
Yeah.
versus offering advice.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. Did you ever really learn how to dance?
Yeah, I got okay at it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was okay. I did salsa.
Nice. Did you win her
Yeah,
back?
she wanted me back. She did. But then I figured out, you know what? I'll go after something better.
Good for you.
And now I have a beautiful wife, 3 kids. It wasn't
And you
with
can
her, but
dance.
yeah, I'm okay with that. And I think, eat your crow, like you said. Take the biggest challenge you can. I was forced out into it, and that's actually one of the things that also helped me do a lot of other things, because it's okay. I've done this thing. Let me try something else, and it just led me to a great path of personal development. Because otherwise, I would probably just have had a normal engineering job, and I wouldn't have developed inside as much. So, in many ways, it was the best thing that happened to me. Yeah.
That is, without a doubt, the most clearly described eating crow moment I've had on the podcast so far. Well done. It's been a
Thanks.
pleasure. I really enjoyed you sharing the story about your father as well. That helps me connect with your journey and why you're motivated to help other people overcome those kind of. You said there's a lot of things we're shaped as children, and the fact that you're helping them get comfortable on the stage to do this. I'll also tell you, Asger, this is some of the best coaching material we've had in the show, right? I've got people are going to walk away from this podcast and go, man, I've picked up some things. So I appreciate you sharing that with others. And you said something I thought was really great, which is info for free, implementation for a fee. What a
Yeah.
great thought process. I don't know if that's original or not, but I think it's
No,
great.
I got it from a guy called Andy Harrington.
Okay.
Great speaker, by the way. Yeah, I can't say that's my quote.
We'll give him props
Uh,
for that then. Okay.
yeah, I should have told that. I think we need to give people the credit they deserve when they
Yeah,
come up
that's
with a
why I
great
asked, because I
quote.
thought it's such a powerful
Yeah,
point. But that's
yeah,
great to know that came from somewhere and you're applying
yeah,
it. So,
yeah.
Asger, wonderful. I appreciate the time. I'm already thinking about our next episode. I want
Awesome.
to see how your business grows and
Yeah,
share some more thoughts, because this is really valuable for any leader or any entrepreneur to figure out how to be a better speaker and convey value to their audience. So thanks so much for the time. Again, we really appreciate it.
it's my pleasure, Pete.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Asger. If you want to reach out and find out how he can help you become a strong presenter of technical information, you can find Asger's contact information in the show notes. And thanks for tuning in to Eating Crow.
Thanks for checking out Eating Crow. Like and subscribe so you never miss a video.